Have you lost your mind? It was my father's funeral, Liam. I screamed into my phone, barely recognizing my own voice. The pictures were still open on my laptop. Liam grinning at his best friend Daniel's bachelor party, drink in hand, surrounded by women in tiny dresses. The timestamp made me sick to my stomach. 2:45 p.m. last Saturday, exactly when I was watching my father's casket being lowered into the ground. I called you 3 times that day. 3 times. And you texted back saying you were too sick to come. My name is Emma Collins, and at 28 years old, I never expected to lose both my father and my fiancé in the same week. Not that Liam was technically gone yet. He was still on the other end of the phone, stammering excuses about prior commitments and how Daniel really needed him there. But in my heart, I knew the man I thought I was going to marry had died the moment I saw those Instagram posts. The worst part wasn't even the partying or the women. It was the look of pure joy on his face while I was living through the darkest day of my life. I sat at my kitchen counter, still wearing one of my dad's old cardigans that I'd been living in since he passed, staring at the 3-carat ring on my finger that suddenly felt like it was burning my skin. You don't understand, Emma. Liam's voice took on that condescending tone I'd heard more often lately. Daniel's my best friend. This was his last big celebration before settling down. Your dad, well, he was already gone. It's not like me being there would have brought him back. The casual cruelty of his words hit me like a physical blow. My dad had always been quietly skeptical of Liam, gently asking me if I was sure about him even from his hospital bed. You'll figure him out eventually, sweet pea, he'd said with a knowing look. Now, just days after losing him, I finally understood what he'd seen all along. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs long before the funeral. My dad's battle with cancer had been brutal. 8 months of watching this strong, vibrant man who'd raised me single-handedly after Mom died slowly slip away. Through every chemotherapy session and doctor's appointment, Liam always had an excuse for why he couldn't come with me. Work meetings, family obligations, last-minute emergencies with friends. I made excuses for him, telling myself and my dad that he was just uncomfortable around hospitals, that not everyone could handle seeing someone they cared about suffering. The thing about grief is that it has a way of stripping away the lies we tell ourselves. My dad was my rock, my compass, the person who taught me everything from how to change a tire to how to stand up for myself. He worked 2 jobs to put me through college, never missing a single parent-teacher conference or dance recital when I was growing up. Even when he got sick, he was more worried about me than himself. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself, sweet pea, he'd say, squeezing my hand with what strength he had left. Don't let anyone dim your light. I'd nod and change the subject, not ready to face what he was really trying to tell me. Sophia, my best friend since college, had tried to open my eyes too. She'd notice how Liam would dismiss my opinions during dinner parties, or how he'd forget to invite me to important work events where other partners were welcome. He treats you like an afterthought, Emma, she'd say gently. But I was too invested in the fairy tale I'd built in my head. The successful marketing executive who'd swept me off my feet, the perfect proposal at sunset on the beach, the lifestyle magazine's version of happiness. My dad's death shattered that carefully constructed illusion, forcing me to see what had been there all along. A man who could party while I buried my father, who could laugh while my world fell apart. I took a deep, shaky breath and looked at the photos again. There was Liam, playfully tossing cash at a dancer while my mascara was running down my face at the funeral. Another shot showed him carrying Daniel on his shoulders in a pool at 4 p.m., right when I was trying to hold it together during my dad's eulogy. Each swipe felt like a knife twisting in my chest. The comments under the posts made it even worse. Best bachelor party ever. And living your best life, bro. Meanwhile, my phone was full of heartfelt condolence messages I couldn't even bring myself to answer. Emma, are you still there? Liam's voice crackled through the phone, snapping me back to reality. Look, I know the timing wasn't great, but you're being dramatic. It's not like I could just bail on Daniel. We've been best friends since high school. I could hear the familiar sounds of his office in the background, He couldn't even give this conversation his full attention. Something inside me shifted, like a switch being flipped. The tears stopped, replaced by a cold clarity I'd never felt before. "You're right, Liam," I said quietly, twisting the engagement ring off my finger. "The timing wasn't great, just like it wasn't great when you missed Dad's last Christmas because of your company ski trip, or when you left halfway through his birthday dinner because Daniel needed help moving." I could practically hear him rolling his eyes through the phone. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the bachelor party. This was about years of small betrayals I'd excused, of boundaries I'd let him cross, of red flags I'd painted pink through rose-colored glasses. Dad would have been so disappointed in how little I'd valued myself. "You know what, Emma? I've had enough of this guilt trip," Liam snapped, his voice rising. "I get that you're sad about your dad, but life goes on. Daniel spent thousands on this party, and as his best man..." I cut him off, my hand gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. "As his best man? What? You had to watch him do body shots while I was saying goodbye to my father? Had to pose with those girls while I was picking out a casket?" My voice was trembling, but not from sadness anymore. Pure rage coursed through my veins as 3 years of suppressed anger finally broke free. "Tell me, Liam, did you even think about me once that day?" The silence on his end was deafening. Then came his response, dripping with that patronizing tone he'd perfected over the years. "Of course I thought about you, babe. I even sent you a text, remember?" A bitter laugh escaped my throat. One text. A single message saying he was too sick to come, followed by a sad face emoji. That's what my father's funeral, what my grief, was worth to him. I opened my laptop again, this time pulling up my email. "You want to know something interesting, Liam? Daniel's fiancé just sent me some videos from the party. Apparently she feels terrible about what happened." I heard him inhale sharply. "Would you like to know what time you posted that lovely TikTok of you doing the worm on the beach? Because I can tell you exactly what I was doing at 3:27 p.m. I was trying to find the strength to read the eulogy I'd written for my dad." There was rustling on his end of the line, the sound of a door closing. Finally, he was taking this seriously. "Emma, listen to me." His voice had dropped to a whisper. "Those videos, they don't tell the whole story. I was just trying to keep Daniel's spirits up. You know how he gets when he drinks. More excuses. Always more excuses. But this time, I wasn't buying them." "Let me tell you what those videos do show, Liam," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "They show you knocking back shots with the groomsmen at 2 p.m. when I texted you asking if you'd at least come to the reception. They show you dancing on tables at 5 p.m. when I was sorting through Dad's belongings with Sophia because I couldn't bear to do it alone. But most importantly, they show exactly who you are, not who I've been pretending you are for the past 3 years." The sounds of Liam's office faded away, replaced by what I assumed was him ducking into a stairwell. "You're being hysterical," he hissed. "This isn't about the party at all, is it? This is about your dad. You're just looking for someone to blame because he's gone." His words hit me like a slap in the face. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, Dad and me at my college graduation, both of us beaming with pride. He'd worked overtime for months to help pay for my final semester. "You're right about one thing," I replied, surprised by how calm I felt. "This isn't just about the party. It's about the fact that while you were living it up at that beach resort, Sophia drove 3 hours in the rain to be with me. It's about how Daniel's fiancé, who I've met twice, sent me a heartfelt condolence card while you couldn't even bother to show up. It's about how you've shown me, beyond any doubt, that you will always choose your own comfort over my pain." I could hear him starting to protest, but for once I didn't let him interrupt. These words had been building up for too long. "You want to talk about time, Liam? Let's talk about it," I continued, pulling up the photo gallery on my phone. "Here's a lovely shot of you doing karaoke at 6 p.m., right when I was having a breakdown in my car because Dad's empty house felt too overwhelming. Oh, and look at this one from Sunday morning. You poolside with a mimosa while I was meeting with the funeral home to settle the final bills. Would you like me to keep going?" There was a long pause, followed by the sound of him clearing his throat. "Okay, I messed up," he finally admitted, but his tone was more annoyed than remorseful. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. But you can't just throw away 3 years together over one mistake. Think about the wedding, the house we talked about buying. Are you really willing to give up our future because I made one bad decision?" I looked down at the engagement ring sitting on my counter, remembering how proud I'd been to show it to Dad in the hospital. His response hadn't been what I expected. Instead of congratulating me, he'd taken my hand and asked, "But does he make you proud, sweet pea?" At the time, I'd brushed off his concern. Now those words echoed in my mind like a warning I should have heeded. "You're right again, Liam," I said quietly. "One mistake shouldn't end a relationship. But this isn't one mistake, is it? This is just the first time I've been strong enough to see them all clearly." "What are you saying?" Liam's voice had lost its condescending edge, replaced by something closer to panic. I picked up the ring, turning it over in my palm one last time. All those nights I'd spent admiring how it sparkled, dreaming of our future together, felt like memories from another life now. A life where I was smaller, weaker, willing to accept scraps of affection and call it love. "I'm saying that my father's last gift to me was clarity," I replied, dropping the ring into an envelope along with the stack of photos I'd printed from Daniel's fiancé's social media. He spent his whole life showing me what real love looks like, showing up when it matters, choosing my happiness over his convenience, being there even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. My voice cracked slightly, but I pressed on. "And you, Liam, you've spent the last 3 years showing me exactly the opposite." The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything I'd left unsaid over the years. Every time I'd swallowed my disappointment when he bailed on family dinners, every forced smile when he'd dismiss my accomplishments at work, every tear I'd hidden when he'd choose his friends over me. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice tight with anger. "So that's it? You're really going to throw everything away over this?" "God, Emma, I knew you were sensitive, but this is ridiculous. You know what? Take some time to calm down. Call me when you're thinking rationally again." "Actually," I said, sealing the envelope with a sense of finality, "I am thinking rationally for the first time in years. The ring will be in your mailbox tomorrow. Don't try to contact me again." Before he could respond, I ended the call and blocked his number. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. "You'll figure him out eventually, sweet pea." As tears rolled down my cheeks, I smiled through them. "You were right, Dad," I whispered. "You were right all along." The next few weeks were a blur of condolence cards, well-meaning casseroles from neighbors, and a deafening silence from Liam's side of the world. I'd expected him to fight harder, to show up at my door with grand apologies and bigger promises. Instead, all I got was a series of increasingly angry texts from his sister about how I was breaking her brother's heart and being selfish. I blocked her number too. Sophia practically moved in with me during those first difficult days. She'd come over after work, armed with takeout and patience, sitting with me while I alternated between crying over Dad and raging about Liam. "You know what the worst part is?" I told her one evening, curled up on my couch in Dad's old cardigan. "I keep finding things I want to tell Dad about all this. Every time something happens, my first thought is still to call him." She just nodded, understanding that some pains don't need solutions. They just need witnesses. The real wake-up call came when I started packing up my dad's house. In his study, I found a letter he'd written to me just weeks before he passed. "My dearest Emma," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to tell you these things in person. But there are some truths that need to be said." He went on to write about how proud he was of me, how much joy I'd brought to his life. Then came the part that made my heart stop. "I've watched you shrink yourself to fit into Liam's world, sweet pea. I've seen you dim your light to keep from outshining him. That's not the daughter I raised. That's not the woman you're meant to be." Reading those words, surrounded by the remnants of my dad's life, his favorite coffee mug still on the desk, his reading glasses folded neatly beside it, something shifted inside me. I realized that I wasn't just grieving Dad's death. I was grieving the person I'd become with Liam. The way I'd learned to make myself smaller, to apologize for having needs, to accept less than I deserved. Dad had seen it all, and in his final act of love, he'd given me permission to break free. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding. I opened my laptop and went through our old photos together. There was the night Liam proposed, me beaming at the camera while he looked slightly impatient, already checking his phone. Our last Christmas together, where he spent most of Dad's dinner party networking with my cousin's husband about potential business contacts. Even our happiest moments were tinged with signs I'd chosen to ignore. "Oh, Dad," I whispered to the empty room. "How did you see it so clearly when I couldn't see it at all?" 3 days later, the real test came. I was at the grocery store, mindlessly pushing my cart through the aisles, when I literally ran into Daniel and his new wife, Sarah. My heart jumped into my throat. These were the first people from Liam's circle I'd seen since everything happened. But before I could mumble an excuse and escape, Sarah stepped forward and hugged me tightly. "Emma, I am so sorry," she said, pulling back to look at me with genuine concern. "I've been wanting to reach out, but I wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from me. What Liam did, there's no excuse for it." Daniel stood awkwardly behind her, shifting from foot to foot, guilt written all over his face. I noticed he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "I tried to tell him not to come," Daniel finally blurted out. "When he showed up at the party, I asked him about the funeral. He said you'd told him not to worry about it, that you had plenty of support." The fluorescent lights of the grocery store suddenly felt too bright, the aisle too narrow. I should have known he was lying. I should have said something more. "I'm sorry, Emma." Something about their genuine remorse, standing there between the cereal boxes and canned vegetables, broke through the protective wall I'd built around myself. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, surprising myself with a small laugh. "He didn't even reach out after Dad died. No flowers, no card. Just that one text claiming he was sick, then radio silence until I saw the party photos." Sarah's face darkened with anger, and I saw Daniel wince. "That's not even the worst part," Sarah added hesitantly. "He's been telling everyone that you ended things because you're emotionally unstable after your dad's death, that you're not thinking clearly and will come to your senses eventually." She pulled out her phone, showing me some of his recent social media posts, carefully crafted stories painting him as the patient, understanding fiancé dealing with his grieving partner's irrational behavior. Instead of the fury I expected to feel, a strange calm washed over me. "You know what?" I said, straightening my shoulders. "Let him tell whatever story helps him sleep at night. The people who matter know the truth, and the people who believe his lies probably weren't meant to be in my life anyway." I saw respect flash across Sarah's face while Daniel looked even more ashamed. It's been 6 months since Dad passed away, and 4 months since I ended things with Liam. The grief still comes in waves. Some days I can smile at Dad's photos, other days I still reach for the phone to call him. But ending things with Liam? That pain faded faster than I expected, replaced by a growing sense of freedom I hadn't even known I was missing. Last week, I was going through the last box of Dad's things when I found his old leather journal. Inside, on the very last page, he'd written something that made me cry and laugh at the same time. "My Emma has always been stronger than she knows. Sometimes life's hardest moments are actually gifts in disguise. They show us who we really are, and more importantly, who others really are too." Next to these words was a small drawing of a butterfly breaking free from its cocoon. It was exactly the kind of quiet wisdom Dad had always shared with me, right up until the end. Looking at that sketch now, I realized that's exactly what happened. Losing Dad broke my heart, but it also broke the spell I was under with Liam. Sometimes it takes our greatest loss to find our greatest strength. And so, I find myself here, on the other side of everything. Different, yet more myself than I've ever been. Grief has a way of hollowing you out, carving space for truth to take root. Losing Dad was the greatest loss of my life, but it also gave me the clarity to walk away from a love that wasn't love at all. The ache of his absence is something I carry every day, but it no longer feels like a weight pressing me down. Instead, it's a reminder of the lessons he left me, to value myself, to expect real love, and to never let anyone dim my light. Liam is a closed chapter now, and with him went the ring, the photos, and the carefully curated illusion of our life together. What replaced them was far more precious: peace. I've started journaling again, using the notebook I found among my dad's things. Each page feels like a step forward, a way to reclaim my voice. Tonight, I sit on my dad's porch, watching the sun set behind the hills, the sky painted in colors he would have called perfect for fishing. For the first time in a long time, I feel something unexpected: hope. Life doesn't just go on after heartbreak, it finds ways to bloom. Even in the shadow of loss, even in the wreckage of love gone wrong, there's space for growth. And as I sit here, wrapped in my dad's old cardigan, I know this for certain: I'm ready to grow.